Man, I am really going in there today with my reptilian alien queen makeup. They're not all winners. Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of
Crue Trime.
Crue Trime, Crue Trime, Crue Trime, Crue Trime, Crue Trime. If you are new here, hi. If you're not, welcome back. Good to see you. My name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day and put on my makeup at the same time. So if that sounds like fun to you, then you are in the right place. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification. Pretty sure it's right there. Could be incorrect. Over here? Sorry. But if you do that, then you'll never miss one of my terrible stories. So today's story was actually recommended to me a while ago by somebody that you might know. Michele Wang. If you don't know who Michele Wang is, first of all, how dare you? I'll link her channel down in the description box. She's also a creator here on YouTube and Instagram and the TikToks and all of the places. She's the queen of luxury, beauty, and fashion, but she's also super duper nice and normal.
Getting ready for I can't do I can't use this. I can't use this filter. No. Okay. Getting ready for lunch today with my mom, and I thought
She's really into Crue Trime, like us creeps. She told me about this story a long time ago, and I squirreled it away so well that I lost it until recently, so we're going to get into it today. This is the story of Girly Chew Hossencofft. So as a reminder, I don't really talk about the makeup that I'm using as I'm using it, but if you're interested, just look down in the description box because everything is linked if it's still available. Let's get started. This is a long one. At 8 a.m. on September 10th, 1999, Kathy Szymanski, the vice president of Albuquerque's Bank of America, arrived at work and was immediately worried. Her best bank teller, 36-year-old Girly Chew Hossencofft, was not at work, and she was never, ever late and never, ever missed work. I mean, how many of these stories have started exactly like this? Also, yes, her name was Girly. Well, more concerning than Girly not being on time to work was that she had a restraining order out against her crazy, estranged husband, and she had let everyone in the bank know, if I don't show up for work, call the police. Girly, as I mentioned, was estranged from her husband. She had left him, Mr. Crazy Ass, and she had gotten like a secret apartment, and only one other person knew its location for her own safety. She was truly terrified of this man, and everybody in the bank believed her. You know, the threat was totally real. Okay, so a short time later, another woman named Ernie Johnson called to see if Girly had arrived at work. Well, Kathy knew this person, Ernie. She was actually a teller at another location, bank location, and she was Girly's best friend, so she took the call. Ernie told Kathy that she hadn't been able to get in touch with Girly since the night before, and now this morning, she wasn't answering the phone. Girly didn't have a lot of people in her life, and Kathy knew that Ernie checked in on her every day to make sure that she was okay. So that was enough for Kathy. You know, if Ernie hadn't talked to her and now Girly wasn't at work, something is really wrong. At 8:15, Kathy called the Albuquerque Police Department to report her missing, and of course, you know, we all know what happens. It had only been 15 minutes in their mind that she'd been missing, so the police, they weren't excited to go look for her. There's this idea that a person has to be missing for 24 hours before the police will, you know, officially file anything. Not true. Okay, not true. If you know something's not right, file it. Well, Kathy also happened to have a copy of this restraining order against Girly's estranged husband, 36-year-old Dyson Hossencofft. These names are really fun, huh? Girly Chew, Dyson Hossencofft. Anyway, so remember I mentioned only one other person knew the location of Girly's secret apartment, and that was another coworker at the bank named Jesse Grove, another bank teller. He was the one person that she trusted, and he had helped her move in, you know. So Kathy sent Jesse over to the Valley Grand Apartments to see if Girly was home. And when Jesse got there, he and the apartment manager went into Girly's apartment. Nothing seemed to be out of order. Everything's very neat in its place, but, Girly wasn't there. None of the furniture had been disturbed. However, there was a strange reddish stain on the carpet that appeared to have been cleaned, and there was a scent of bleach in the air. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, another police officer had received a phone call to perform a welfare check on Hossencofft. This police officer had actually been sent out to this home before, about a week earlier. A counselor had actually called for a welfare check because they suspected that Dyson might be suicidal. She also knew that he had some firearms. She had convinced him to actually give the guns over to his neighbor for safekeeping. So now there are multiple police officers at the home, and they're putting the connection together, Girly Chew and Dyson Hossencofft. Well, at Dyson's apartment, the front door was wide open and the house was completely empty. The only person there was a cleaning woman who didn't really speak English, or at least claimed not to. Police officer's concern was that after speaking with the neighbor, he realized Dyson had his guns back, and now they know that Girly Chew is missing. So back at Girly's apartment with a search warrant, investigators seized that sketchy carpet from the living room. Remember that stain and the smell of bleach, so they took it to the crime lab for further investigation. While all of this craziness is unfolding, there was a man who worked for New Mexico's road system. His name was Ray Gabaldon. Sorry. He noticed what he thought was a blanket on the side of the road. He pulled over to check it out because he didn't want the thing to blow into the street, and cause an accident. This was close to Magdalena, which is about 90 minutes south of Albuquerque off of Highway 60. When Ray pulled over, he noticed it wasn't a blanket at all. It was a tarp with blood on it. Thinking only the best intentions, he's like, well, it is elk season, so, maybe this flew off of a hunter's truck or something. Well, when he got a really good look, then he noticed there was some long dark hair on the tarp and also duct tape with hair stuck in it. And the duct tape was like in a figure eight, like improvised handcuff shaped. Then also nearby, he noticed a small blouse and underwears, both with some blood on them. Yikes! Well, he turned all those items over to the New Mexico State Police, and of course they started processing them right away. We now know that the clothing items belonged to Girly Chew Hossencofft. The blood that was on them belonged also to Girly Chew Hossencofft. Girly had been reported missing about an hour earlier, but the word had not reached down to that particular area where those items were recovered yet. That very same morning, competitive cyclist Stephen Knight Williamson found a wallet in the middle of Tramway Boulevard. So Tramway was a straight shot from Girly's apartment to Interstate 25, which leads to Magdalena, where the tarp and the bloody clothes were found. The only thing that was inside the wallet was the ID card of Girly Chew Hossencofft. Things aren't looking good for her. A lot of stuff discovered on that first day, too. Interesting. So who was Girly? I'm glad you asked. Girly Chew was born on August 27th, 1963 in Malaysia to Chu Ching Kang and Chin Guok Wan. I hope I said that right. I tried really hard. Girly had another sister named June and an older brother named Andrew. Girly was raised in Penang and lived her entire life with her parents until she met the villain of the story. Girly was a dutiful daughter and a devout Buddhist who enjoyed cooking and loved her family very, very much. At the age of 21, Girly started working for the Bank of Hong Kong, which was a very prestigious job. So she and her very good friend, Susan Oh, took many vacations to the United States, and on one of those trips, they visited the SeaWorld Aquarium in San Diego, California. It was there that she met a man named Dr. Dyson Hossencofft from Zurich, Switzerland. He was a tourist as well. He said that he was living in the United States and studying genetic research. Well, sparks flew. When Girly returned to Malaysia, the two began a very romantic exchange of letters, very old school. Dr. Hossencofft invited Girly to live with him in New Mexico, and she accepted. When Girly arrived to Albuquerque in late December 1992, Dr. Hossencofft gave her a beautiful diamond ring, and then they got married very shortly after that. Girly took a job as a bank teller, and for a few years, things were looking really good for them. They were very happy. Dr. Hossencofft was working in very exciting medical research, something about genetic composition of humans, carbon science. But who was he? Well, first of all, he was not born Dyson Hossencofft. He officially, legally changed his name to that in January of 1992, but he was born Armando Chavez. Armando Chavez Jr. was born on March 5th, 1965 in Houston, Texas, to Armando and Yolanda Chavez. When Armando was a young boy, about 10 years old, his parents divorced, so he and his sister actually went to live with his father. Then his father remarried and had 2 more sons, one named Stanley, one named Enrico. Well, Armando definitely missed his mother, but he also loved his younger half-brothers. He was very athletic, playing soccer and football in school, and during high school, he played football for Girard Catholic High School, and it was at that time that he suffered a pretty severe head injury. He was actually hospitalized for 4 days. Well, Armando's family and friends say that after that accident, he was never really the same, personality-wise. So, was he suffering a traumatic brain injury, or was it just, high school stuff? Okay, so after high school, Armando enrolled at Notre Dame College in Belmont, California. He received his bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Science, and he immediately applied to medical school. But his grades, they weren't good, so he didn't get into any medical schools. At age 23, he got married for the first time to a woman named Rosemary Guerrera. They were actually together for about 3 years. They had a son together, but then, things fell apart and they divorced. Things took a turn. Armando started to embrace alternative facts. He started getting very creative with, the truth. He was a fake, a phony, a flim-flam man. Armando started getting involved with wealthy young women. Not romantically, but as an assistant. One particular woman, he was like a caretaker, he's preparing meals for her. She had severe depression and needed some help. And she got really, really sick and almost died due to arsenic poisoning. She flat out accused Armando of poisoning her. But at the time, the police had no reason to suspect that this young man was doing anything wrong. She was obviously hysterical. Nothing came of it. After that fell apart, Armando became a doctor. He started to meet women that were suffering from serious illnesses like cancer, and he would treat them with his miracle elixirs. Slowly, he would gain their confidence and then convince them that what he was doing would cure them. He would sell them on some story that he was doing medical research, very sensitive, top secret research. And if they could keep a secret and were willing to pay him handsomely for his risk, he'd let them in on these cancer advances that they were making. These life-saving treatments that were totally bullshit. He was really good. He was born to con. His con over the years evolved and turned into finding women that he could kind of romance online, typically older women, divorcees with some expendable money. He told them about his, now it's a youth serum, He would sell them this youth serum for this crazy inflated price and they would pay, He was injecting them with B vitamins. B vitamins are good and all, but it ain't the fountain of youth. But, he was making very big promises to these ladies, so he was making big money. By the time he had met Girly, he had upped his game and had recently changed his name to Dyson Hossencofft. It's kind of fun to say. So he claimed that he was a doctor and he was doing research in genetics, as I mentioned. He would sometimes mix up his stories and say that he was from Germany or sometimes Switzerland. And by the way, His resume was like totally full of typos, nonsensical things, things that most people would just never believe, but nobody ever questioned it. He also had a wall of fake degrees. You can buy degrees from Etsy. You know what I'm saying? Then there was the cancer. He was telling everyone that he was suffering from leukemia and he needed donations for treatments, of course. Which is confusing to me because, wasn't he making a lot of money? Basically, there was just a lot of, bullshit swirling around. A lot of things hard to confirm, hard to nail down. Very mercurial. Okay, so Dyson and Girly were married and they decided that they were going to try to start a family. But Girly was having trouble conceiving. We now know that Dyson had other girlfriends, ones that he specifically was trying to impregnate. There was one that he was successful in this scam with. It was a Japanese woman and they conceived a son. After the baby was born, he told the woman that the child was born with some terrible genetic disease, from his side of the family, and they were going to need to send this child away for very specialized treatment. He convinced this woman to give up the baby, send it away. And she did. It gets crazier. So one day in December of 1996, Dyson showed up to the house with a baby. It gives it to Girly and says that he just adopted him and they're going to name him Dimitri. Okay, seems reasonable. Husband just shows up one day with a baby that he adopted. No discussion. Anyways, so Girly's friend Ernie, remember from the beginning of the story? She said that she didn't understand this whole I just adopted a baby, but she was willing to go with it for Girly's happiness. So by this time, Dr. Hossencofft often was traveling for work, doing heart and lung transplants for charity organizations. Okay, so meanwhile, back at home, Girly is spending a lot of time alone with this adopted baby. Dyson is gone for work a lot. Girly's left holding the bag, raising this kid. Dyson also had an office in the house that was off limits to Girly. That's fucking weird. Curiosity killed the cat, and one day Girly got in and snooped around. I would do the same thing. I'm so nosy. Well, Girly got into his computer and, surprise, surprise, found a treasure trove of crazy information about him. He wasn't from Switzerland. He was from Houston, Texas. His name was not Dyson. It was Armando. Well, it used to be. This adopted baby was definitely his natural-born child with another woman. And there was lots of women. Some stories that he was telling people that this baby, Dimitri, had been engineered in a test tube by the CIA. Well, Girly was sickened by this, and she confronted Dyson when he returned from his business trip. Things weren't good, but Dyson needed to gain control of the situation. So, of course, he fast-talked his way out of it, and Girly wasn't in any kind of position to leave, especially with the young child, Dimitri, to raise. So she stayed for a little while longer, but she was on to his bullshit. So on one occasion, Dyson was acting suspiciously and was sneaking around in the garage like a weirdo. Girly caught him in the garage loosening the lug nuts on her car. Was he trying to kill her? Sure seems like it. She confronted him and he got physically violent with her. It was then when she started to fear for her life. She knew that she was going to need to get away from him, and she was going to have to leave Dimitri behind to do it. After the lug nut incident and some other crazy things, Girly left and filed for divorce. With the help of her one trusted confidant and bank coworker, Jessie, she got the secret apartment. I mean, at least she thought it was secret. You know what? Side note, I was a little confused. Why doesn't her best friend know about the apartment? Maybe she did know. Anyway, so we're back to the beginning. Girly is missing. On September 14th, 1999, the lead on Girly's case, Detective Fox, called the lead prosecutor, Paul Spires, to let him know that they were having issues with a couple of key witnesses, specifically a woman named Linda Henning. So Linda's link to the case was she had been identified on an adoption form as an emergency contact. Turns out that Dyson had put little Dimitri up for adoption, and he needed a contact person. This is bizarre. Well, once investigators realized what was going on, they were like, oh God, did he get a hold of her too? When they were able to get in contact with her and sit down for an interview in mid-September, she told them that she was Dyson's caretaker, remember? He was suffering from leukemia. After that initial interview, she started getting a little sketchy, being evasive and avoiding phones and staying in crowded places so that she couldn't be followed or it'd be harder to follow her and all of that stuff. So who was this Linda Henning? Well, Linda Teresa Henning was born on October 10th, 1953 in Hollywood, California. She was raised in the San Fernando Valley by a single mom. Her dad was not in the picture at all. By all accounts, Linda was, a smart person, normal person, but by the time Dyson entered the picture, she was different, like brainwashed even. She was all in on Dyson Hossencofft, and she believed everything that he told her. And he was telling her tall tales, man. Like he worked at NASA, CIA, NSA, all these three-letter agencies. Also, he had discovered some kind of miracle youth serum. Even after one of Linda's longtime friends told her, this guy is full of shit. Look at this resume. None of it's true. Also, his name is Armando Chavez Jr. from Houston, Texas. Linda refused to believe it. She was totally digmatized. Linda and Dyson connected on a very different level. They had actually met at a UFO convention in New Mexico. They were both super duper into UFOs and government conspiracies and all of that stuff. Dyson, remember, told her that he was suffering from leukemia, which, to be clear, he never had. Okay. They both had a very sincere belief that aliens had visited the Earth many times and seeded it with both good and bad aliens. He also explained to Linda over a matter of days that he was a 10,000-year-old alien who had been put on Earth as a protector. I mean, seems legit. He convinced her that there were reptilian alien beings coming to Earth soon and that she was meant to be the reptilian alien queen. She had to destroy the evil alien queen that was already on Earth. Girly Chew. Reptilian aliens. How was she supposed to destroy her? Well, with a samurai sword, of course. A fucking samurai sword. A katana. You guys, I told you to hold on to your butts. Well, the longer that Linda was around Dyson, the nuttier she got. I don't know how it could be nuttier, but okay. So Linda's original interview with police was, normal. As in, she didn't say anything weird about reptilian alien people. I mean, obviously we now know that she was just lying her little lizard butt off. She said that she barely knew him, she was only his caregiver because of the leukemia, there was nothing romantic, nothing at all like that. Well, on September 22nd, 1999, Linda spent an entire day testifying in front of a grand jury. The next day, DNA results came back from the crime lab, DNA from that tarp and clothing that was discovered. This was all 13 days after Girly first disappeared. That's when investigators were able to make the connection to the items that had been found on the roadside. They also found some other DNA matches on those items. DNA belonging to Dyson Hossencofft. Ooh, also remember that carpet with the weird stain and the bleach. They also found Dyson's hair and cat hair. Well, Girly did not have a cat, but you know who did? Linda. Okay, so Linda was charged with perjury for these fibs that she told the grand jury. At first, those charges were later swapped out for more serious ones. Linda and Dyson were charged with tampering with evidence and for the murder of Girly Chew Hossencofft. Did I mention that Linda had only known him for 6 weeks at this point? Digmatized. Okay, serious business. One little problem. At this point, Dyson was missing, but it really didn't take investigators long to kind of track him down because he was very prolific with all these extra girlfriends that he had kind of stashed all over the place. He was also making a lot of phone calls and threats, including threats to his divorce attorney, the adoption counselor, and a babysitter. They tracked him down in Charleston, South Carolina. Anyways, the FBI arrested him for making threats and had him extradited back to New Mexico, and the grand jury referred the murder charges against him and Linda. Okay, so now Dyson has been charged. He's locked up in the jail, and he made a buddy. So Dyson made friends with a fella named Jeffrey Padilla, who just so happened to be the head of some crime family. Dyson couldn't resist running his mouth. He liked to talk a lot about a lot of things. And he and Linda were exchanging like jailhouse letters at this time. And although the two were actually forbidden from contacting each other, I guess you just can't stop alien reptile love. Anyways, they were exchanging letters, sometimes through like a third party. They were constantly threatening law enforcement in these letters, which is just silly, you know what I mean? There's no such thing as private letters in jail. It didn't stop them. Okay, anyways, so crime boss Padilla was in jail pending 2 murder charges, but officials didn't really have much evidence on him. Dyson was very helpful to them because when he wrote to Linda, he was telling her in these letters how he knew that Padilla did his crimes because he told him. So naturally, the investigators subpoenaed Dyson to testify in their case. So stupid. Which was not like a smart or safe thing for him to do. So right away, Dyson said that he would plead guilty to Girly's murder. He would do or say whatever they wanted as long as they promised to keep him safe and away from Padilla or any of his associates. Part of that deal also included that he needed to reveal the location of Girly's body, which, if I haven't mentioned already, they hadn't found. Okay, so Dyson Hossencofft's confession went a little something like this. His friend and militia leader, Bill Miller, was supposed to follow Girly Chew home from work, to her secret apartment. Then he was supposed to kidnap her with, minimal mess to her apartment and then take her somewhere else to kill her. He would then take her dead body and put it inside of a concrete block and then drop it in one of the vacant mine shafts out in the New Mexico desert. Dyson's job was to come after, to the apartment and make sure that everything was all cleaned up, even though there wasn't really supposed to be a mess. He said that Linda Henning was his alibi and that he was at her house that night, and he kept sending her out to the store and pharmacies so that he could slip away to Girly's apartment. He also said that Linda was his most trusted and loyal confidant. But just in case, he had taken her blood. I guess he had vials of her blood and he was sprinkling it in the crime scene. He said he did that to, confuse the investigators. And Bill never actually revealed to him the location of Girly's body or what happened, and he never asked because he didn't really want to know. He confessed to planning the murder, but, not actually doing it. Linda did not take a plea deal. She decided to plead not guilty and go to trial instead.
And now it's time for us to fight back. That's what a trial is all about.
Anything about aliens in all this?
Oh, I'm sure there'll be an alien or two on the witness stand.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Well, we'll try to keep the aliens out of the jurors.
Okay.
So all the forensic evidence was displayed, just a dash of UFO conspiracies. At her trial, Dyson was called to testify, and basically he said that Linda was not guilty. She was his alibi. Any indication of Linda's presence in Girly's apartment was his doing, not hers. They didn't believe any of that shit. The investigation also revealed that a shotgun and a handgun were purchased on the day that Girly Chew disappeared. An anonymous person contacted the tip line to tell them that there was a samurai sword hidden somewhere in the crawl space at Linda's house. You thought I forgot about the sword? No. So this sword was allegedly purchased just a few days before Girly's death, and it was a gift from Dyson to Linda. The anonymous caller told investigators that they would find a drop of Dyson's blood on the hilt of this samurai sword, supposedly because of some ancient Japanese ritual. Pause. There's no such ritual. That is made up. There's nothing like that associated with a katana. There are, however, some very specific, rules about how you hold a katana, like in your right hand only, or like how you display them in your home, like the direction that they face. Also, giving knives, swords, scissors, any kind of like sharp-edged object is, in Asian culture, traditionally considered with severing a relationship. So like if you're going to give somebody a sword, like a katana, as a gift, you also give the recipient a coin, which then they give back to you immediately to like buy it from you so that you don't cut your friendship. It's a whole thing. In Dyson's testimony, he was very obviously trying to protect Linda. She had nothing to do with this. It was all me. He had nothing to lose. At this point, he'd already been sentenced to life in prison. Like part of that deal with his confession so that to keep him away from the crime family guy. During his testimony, Dyson went like off the rails. He said that Girly was a marked woman, and when she decided to take Dimitri and half of his money, she signed her own death note. He said, quote, that he hunted her down like the dog that she was, and yes, she ran like a scared rabbit in an open field, and he hoped that she suffered excruciating pain. Okay. He told the judge about Linda that if you sentence this woman to death, you'll just be helping me kill my next victim. Okay. Okay, so one of Linda's friends, Mary Alice Thomas, testified at the trial and told the jury that Linda told her that she had recently been appointed Queen of the World and she had a sword to be used in the upcoming battles with the other alien queens.
It's typical, because not one of my girlfriends is ever good enough for you two, is it? Because you two think you're so bloody perfect. No!
This conversation happened about 8 days after Girly disappeared, by the way. Linda also told her about the distrust that she had for the government and other impending alien wars. Alien wars! Holy shit, you guys. That's not the end of it. Either. During the investigation, multiple witnesses said that Linda and Dyson consumed some of Girly's flesh and maybe drank her blood. Okay, so we don't know what they did or didn't do with Girly's body because her body was never found. So after a 3-week trial, a jury found Linda Henning guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping, conspiracy to kidnapping, perjury, criminal solicitation, and tampering with evidence. And she was sentenced to 73 years to life. But what about this Bill Miller that Dyson spoke about in his confession? So this guy Bill was like a total survivalist, anti-government, conspiracy theorist. He lived in the hills near Magdalena with his wife and 2 children. Remember, Magdalena is the location where the items related to Girly were discovered by the roadside. He got really into aliens. This is where he met Dyson and Linda, the alien convention situation. He ended up divorcing his wife, or maybe she divorced him. He just went full UFO conspiracy, anti-government. His cheese slid off his cracker. Initially, the investigators thought that they had a pretty strong case against Miller and they were going to bring in Dyson to testify at his grand jury, but it backfired. He must have been in a mood that day because Dyson was like super wild, erratic and aggressive. And he was being that way to the jurors, especially one woman who lasted about a week before she was like, that's enough. He originally was charged with first-degree murder and 5 counts of tampering with evidence, but when it came down to it, he took a plea deal for 4 counts of tampering with evidence. The murder charges just kind of dissolved, and he was sentenced to 10 whole months in prison. In case you were wondering about the son, Dyson's natural son, Girly's adopted son, he was actually placed for adoption with a new family, and he disappeared quietly into obscurity. The woman who adopted him actually wrote a book about the boy and this super crazy case. And Dimitri no longer has contact with her, so there's that. In 2020, Dyson Hossencofft filed a motion to vacate his sentence. He submitted over 400 pages of, new evidence, interviews, and claims. And remember, this is the same guy who smiled and told a jury that he hunted down Girly like the dog she was. No update on that right now, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. The research says that Dyson Hossencofft is serving his sentence in a Wyoming prison, but I don't know that that was ever really publicized, for his safety. That is the story of Girly Chew Hossencofft. Okay, I know that story was all over the place, but it's because it was all over the place. We've got a con man, we've got a lady who was digmatized, adopted but not adopted, kids, samurai sword, alien reptile queen. If you have a Crue Trime story that you would like to recommend to me, there's a Google Doc down in the description box. Just check it out. Click on it, fill in the details. I would love to hear from you. If you want to know what makeup I used, look down in the description box. A lot of the stuff that I used today, unfortunately, is discontinued, but I will link similar things. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on most of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! Been dispatched. I don't know what I'm doing. And what I do here, he said, stop recording. Hold on to your butts. He was suffering from leukemia. I'm insane. Concerning. There's a dog barking. Love that for me. This is my reptile alien queen makeup. You like it?